Wow, the gang is all here. Look at this. Derek, what are you reading?
I'm reading some Legend of Aquaman, the whipping boy of Calf.
So the legends are true, huh? Well, I thought Larry was going to be wearing his Aquaman shirt today. I mean, after he wore it during the art get-together last weekend. Did you not have time to wash the shirt, Larry, and put it back on?
Oh, that's right. That's what it is. It was raining that day too, so it needs to get washed.
I get it. Well, I love that Larry approached me about a week ago, said he wanted to do a collector conversation. And as we all know, those 20 episodes are probably some of the most beloved chats that we've ever had on this channel in the 3 years that we've been doing these things. So I was really happy when Larry said he was going to helm one of these, and the crew pulled together with Kevin and Derek and Michael was fantastic. So here we are. So I'm going to turn the reins over to Larry. And I'm going to sit in the behind the scenes, and because I've got a lot of other things to work on. But you're in good hands with Larry, as we know he is your second favorite host of shows here. Well, maybe third after Dino, but you're up there, Larry. You're right.
That's right.
Top 10, definitely.
Top 10. That's for sure. All right. Well, I'm going to go hang out in the back of the studio here, and you guys have at it.
Thanks, Phil. So this is a special 1 hour edition of Collector Conversations. So I know everybody's wondering. Right now, there are no plans to have this as a recurring show, but we thought it deserved to have a special during Comic Art Live. And today's panel is Derek Crabbe, Michael McIsaac, and Kevin Sharp. You may have remembered Derek and Michael were on the show in the first 20 shows before it got canceled. And Kevin, he hasn't been on Collector Conversations, but he has been on other CAF shows, so you may be familiar with him. So today we're going to talk.
Larry, I'm going to assume that all of the female representation you reached out to turned you down.
all two of them, yeah.
All right.
So, thanks, James. All right, so we'll start off talking a little about Comic Art Live. So this is what I've seen so far is that you got 6,491 pieces for sale. We got over 300 exhibitors, and last I looked, there was almost 500 pieces sold. The top three pieces that when I looked at it were the Tradmore Silver Surfer Black. That was sold by Comic Connect, and we got the Mick Austin Miracle Man and an Infinite Crisis page from Dino. So those were the top three sellers. Now, Derek, you just got an Infinite Crisis page, so that price probably makes you pretty happy.
Oh, the his Crisis page sold? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so we got 22,000 for it. So we're gonna just chat a little bit about what were your thoughts about Comic Art Live so far? Did any of the sold pieces surprise or catch your eye? Derek, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good time. I mean, mostly for me, this is a reprieve for the weekend. I mean, like all of us, I love looking at art. So whether I buy something or not, it's always fun to scroll through and see what everybody has up for offer and check out all the art, because that's kind of what we're really here to do. I mean, as far as surprises, I don't know. I feel bad. I don't always like tilt it to sold and like hyper analyze like everything that's sold. I'm sort of hyper focused where my methodology is I check my premium want list and see if there's anything really cool that I want to go after. And then I take a look at that when it all drops. And then I think after that, I probably methodically go through and just look at like covers and DPSs and interiors and just see if anything else catches my eye that wasn't in my want list to start with. But I mean, I thought there was a lot of cool stuff. It just, it was kind of like, whether you're tempted or not to get something. And, for the most part, as far as the show goes, I just had fun scrolling through the art and also watching all the shows. Like I know the Wheel of Deals was like, I think my favorite show. Like I had a lot of fun watching that. And I thought it was, I don't know, I had a good time. So that's kind of my takeaway from this weekend.
I recommend playing it sometime. I enjoy it. I got 50% off my first time playing. I don't know if our luck will keep going, but it was fun. Alan Hamilton asked if you can move the mic closer. Apparently,
sure. Yeah.
Little trouble hearing it.
Knocking off the whipping boys of CAF. Absolutely.
All right, Mike. What about you? Notice anything about Comic Art Live? Any thoughts so far?
I mean, in terms of the types of stuff that I look at, that I specifically focus on, it's been actually pretty good. my focus is largely on panel pages and not the higher end stuff, more the reasonably priced. Let's just say I don't know the best way to describe it. I don't want to say cheap art because none of it's cheap, but in terms of that type of art, I mean, this was one of the best comic art lives that I've experienced. I went into it not really planning on buying anything. I think I've picked up 9 pages, which I think my wife is watching, so I'm gonna have to explain that to her after. But there was a lot of, I thought, reasonably priced stuff. Definitely stuff for collectors at any end of the collecting spectrum, for all different types of interests. I mean, I've been looking for a very long time for a good example of this. Just goes to show how specific I can get in terms of what I focus on, but at the same time being very broad. I've been looking for a long time for a good Who's Who page from the Binder era from the early 90s. And Jeff Moy had a Brian Stelfreeze Dr. Light from that, and so I jumped on that immediately. But I picked up a Dazzler panel page, and for everything that I bought, there were probably 2 or 3 other things that I would have liked to have picked up, but you can't get everything.
Right. Kevin, what about you?
I'm going to be the most boring person for this topic because, as Larry knows, I'm potentially buying something of I don't want to say a big ticket item, certainly compared to some of these things, but something into the 4 figures. And so the rule I set for myself with this show was I am buying nothing on Saturday. Nothing. I'm not allowed. And so if it's there on Sunday, it's there. And if it's not, okay. So Saturday for me, or the show so far, that's still true. I've bought nothing. That might or might not last until the end of the day. But it's still been very enjoyable. It's been like browsing a museum because I can just look and enjoy and zoom in on this great art, and just for the sake of looking at it and having fun rather than sweating and being like, I got to get this. I got to get this. It's just been very chill and relax.
Awesome.
You're much better disciplined than me.
Oh, Michael, it's been, I have typed so many emails that have just not been sent. They all still exist in a draft form. I've never pushed send. That's where the discipline has come in. As far as surprises go, Larry, I think you asked about that. My 2 biggest ones were that Trad Moore page that you mentioned, and also that Berkey cleared out all his Massafera pieces, or seems to have. He might have 100 more, but I saw all of them sold. They're all listed as sold.
Oh wow.
So there's I guess certainly a healthy market for that.
Or one really big Massafera fan.
Yeah, it's the same guy.
Yeah. And I will say for myself, I mean, I was looking at Jeff Moy's gallery as well too, and he had some pretty good deals. And I would say the biggest surprise was there. He had a Joe Madureira X-Men page for $150.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how he came out with that number. I don't even think it sold for $150 in 1995. But $150. I think a lot of people missed out on that. It's you go looking around and you see a Joe. I mean, pretty much someone's handing out a $2,000 page. I mean, it was a. To me, I've said it before. I think Joe Mad's probably the most overrated artist. But any X-Men page, no matter how bad it is, has to be worth at least $2,000. And it was sold for $150. I don't know how he came up with that number. Even if it was a mistype, even if it was meant to say $1,500, I still say it was underpriced. So I would say that was probably a huge surprise. Like just someone was giving out a $2,000 page. At least it's worth at least $2,000 for about $150. So that was a big surprise to me. So.
I hope it went to somebody who appreciates it, and that we're not going to see it, being flipped for $2,000, 2 weeks.
I agree. And a lot of his stuff sold instantly. I mean, when I looked in his gallery, there was probably majority of the stuff that I would buy from other artists. I think he had an Adam Hughes page that was left, but I think that was sold as well too. But Jeff had some pretty good deals. I like that Lidl page that he showed as well. So, all right. So we'll keep it talking about the Comic Art Lives for a little bit. So I guess I'll ask the panel in terms of was there anything that you missed out or you were tempted to buy? Derek, I'll start with you again.
Is this am I supposed to use my free gift card that Kevin was talking about at this point?
That's part two.
That's part two.
Oh, okay. So then wait, I'm just trying to figure out, like, if
was there something that you said that you probably said you didn't look at anything that was sold, but I mean, I was going to say, did you see something sold that you wish you got, or is there something that you find that is affordable that you can that you're tempted to buy?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Fred had a really great Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Jonah Hex page, and that sold very quickly. And then there was a really nice Joe Staten All-Star Comics page that had Commissioner Wayne, and so that was very tempting. You know, it was definitely like, maybe I didn't go as far as Kevin. I didn't, type up the email and hover over send and then go, don't do that. But it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I saved it, and it was in my watch list and everything, and then I kind of refreshed every once in a while and went, oh, that sold. Well, obviously it sold because those were great prices for really, really great artists and great pages.
Cool. And Mike, we'll go with you.
Yeah, I mean, that Staten page that Derek mentioned was at the top of my list too. I had saved it and was strongly considering going back to it later. And when I did, it had been sold. I think Chris Daly might have had that one. And he also had an Aztec the Ultimate Man page from issue 10 with the Justice League. The Grant Morrison era in a book written by Grant Morrison. And I was very tempted to get that too. And by the time I went back to it, that was gone. There was a Kevin Maguire X-Men Forever page I had that I was going to go back to. And that got sold by the time I did. So I thought there were quite a few good pieces, in terms of stuff that I'm interested in that were clearly, priced well because they went.
Yeah. Mike, I think I shared the same thoughts as you. I actually enjoyed this Comic Art Live more than in the past. I know Bill will say they had a lot of administrative fires in the back end. But for me, I actually found some stuff that I was really interested in, more so than the last couple Comic Art Lives. But I'll just go ahead and go next. So some of the things that I missed out on was the Massive Affair Vader cover. It was more because I got about 10 other Mass Affairs, so I feel weird just keep adding on to that. But that was a great Darth Vader cover that I missed out on. Some of the things that I've been tempted by was someone from Italy. It was a seller in Italy who has Bill Sienkiewicz's Jimi Hendrix splash. It's an unpublished splash, but I really loved Bill's art in that Jimi Hendrix book, and also. Which is probably the most watched art in Comic Art Live right now is the Bachalo death piece that Dino is selling. So those pieces were definitely tempting for me, but I'm holding restraint just because I knocked off my Quesada off my bucket list yesterday. So Kevin, we'll go with you.
To be boring, that Staten page that those guys cited was also because that's my sweet spot from childhood. And same with there's a couple of Staten Green Lantern pages also that jumped out at me. And there's a Howard Chaykin. There's at least I think I saw 2 pages from Blackhawk, and his art from American Flag through about Blackhawk to me is like the primo Chaykin period. And I also saw a Garcia Lopez page from the Twilight miniseries.
Really? I missed that one.
I think it's in today's drop. I saw it today. So I don't want to say, Larry, that I'm going to end this call and go back and purchase any of the things I just named, but they are all definitely living rent-free in my head right now.
All right.
Yeah, I saw at least one of those Blackhawk pages, and it was nice. It was, that is, primo, Chaykin. I don't want to say it is prime, but definitely at the height of his, commercial appeal. And it's
very, very memorable,
really good
series.
stuff. Yeah.
And it's tough with a book like that, where you say something like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, what you'd be looking for in a page from one of those characters. Whereas with Black Hawk, you're not going to get a page that has everybody in their jet fighters screaming the team, cry.
You're not only gonna just focus on the Hawkeye page where they all like chant, and
which may or may not even be in that miniseries. I haven't read that in a long time.
I've wanted a Dan Spiegel Black Hawk page, like a nice representation of that for years, but I haven't seen one that caught my eye.
Yeah, I'm the odd man out. I have no idea what Black Hawk is. I've seen the art, but I've never read the books.
They're a team of World War II, like jet fighter superheroes, but without power. The power is that they're good pilots.
Okay.
Yeah, they were like.
I recognize Lady Black Hawk. That's it.
Yeah. Like part of the World War II contingent of DC heroic characters.
All right, Kevin, you want to ask your question?
So I floated this to these guys before we started recording, just because I figured it would be cruel to put people on the spot with so many things. But I offered a magical gift certificate to Comic Art Live where you can have the seller will get paid via magic money that appears. Don't worry about that part. The question is, if you could have a piece, anything that you just want from the show, not for flipping, for keeping, what would be your pick if I offered you a gift certificate for anything from any booth?
So Jordan's gonna get paid for his Robin meets Man-Bat page, because this I mean, it's not even a comic book, this Power Record thing, but this is like childhood, Superman rocketing through the stratosphere nostalgia for me. Unfortunately, the price is like Doomsday, like punching me down back through, the re-entry. But if I had that, get out of jail card free or whatever Kevin's offering, like I would use it for that for sure. Absolutely, 100%.
Hey, Derek, Ed Harris said he's really jealous of your bookcase. That's pretty nice bookcase around you.
Yeah, that took a while, but it was all IKEA and lots of leg squats that hurt for the next week after I built them all. So yeah.
So when you buy a new book, do you have to take something out?
No, I have like a pile of stuff that's just gonna accumulate, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with that pile. But if you pan over to like what's in front of me, it's a semi mess. But this looks nice, so that's why it's on camera.
Does. Awesome. All right, Mike, what about you? If you had, I guess, a gift certificate or a blank check.
Yeah, if I had the magic gift certificate, I think it's been floating around for a while, but it's on Comic Art Live. It's a Don Heck Avengers number 23 splash with Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch. I mean, the Fantastic Four is, when it comes to Silver Age Marvel, is number one, far above anything else on my list, but number two is definitely the Avengers. And I grew up reading the reprints in like Marvel Triple Action and Marvel Super Action that I used to get out of quarter bins. So there's Don Heck era Avengers holds a special place in my heart, and it's a beautiful splash. So if I were to get one thing with the magic gift card, that's what it would be.
Wow, you don't really hear people say one thing I would get would be a Don Heck piece.
Don Heck, yeah, I know. He has not gotten the proper respect over the years.
Look, he's done some great classic books, so you got to give him that respect.
Yeah.
He wasn't Kirby, he wasn't Buscema, but he was still a place in history.
And if not to dwell on the negative, but if anybody's not familiar with the Comics Journal Harlan Ellison interview and subsequent lawsuit, that where Don Heck was disparaged, it's worth looking up. Just as a piece of comics history.
Okay, great. I'll go next. So I guess if I had this blank gift card that I can just spend on everybody, I mean, I'll probably make Dino a very a richer man. I mean, his Avengers '89 cover, I mean, that really caught my eye. And I'd be surprised if that Kevin didn't select that one, as he would spend his money on. But that Avengers '89 cover really, I mean, I remember when I first saw that, it was just amazing. And on the lower end side, it probably would have been Dino's John Byrne official handbook of the Marvel universe, that issue number 1. I mean, I loved all the wraparounds, but I mean, he got one there, and it's from the beginning. He has a Byrne cap right there in the middle. I love that piece. And then there's another one with Andy. I'm sorry, I'm choosing three, but Andy. I also love Andy Kubert. He has the X-Men splash page. There was a lot of stuff that I found very attractive. But if I had a blank check, it would definitely be the Avengers '89. So
Larry's grabbing all the gift cards.
Those Marvel.
He's taking ours too.
Yeah, I like how we refer to the Byrne Marvel Handbook cover as the lower end.
Yeah.
Well, so my pick would be Larry made a strong guess with the Avengers '89 because that would definitely be my number 2. But my number 1, and going back to what Michael said about picking a Don Heck, is I'm picking a Mike Sekowsky of all things. And this is from an era when I was a kid, first getting into vintage comics.
Yeah.
Outside of the key issues, nobody cared about Silver Age comics. The bins of my LCS were stuffed. I mean, where you had to pull out some to be able to flip. Silver Age books, all priced like $1 to $3, depending on condition. So my pick, I think Berkey used to have this. It's now in Anthony's booth. It's Justice League of America number 47 cover with Batman punching the Antimatter Man. It's the checkerboard era of DC. And it's just, that is the first vintage comic I ever bought with my own allowance money. It was $2 for JLA 47. And so owning that cover feels like closing the loop from, when I was probably 8 or 10 years old. So that would be Sekowsky is not even my top 10 favorite comic artists, but I would have to pick that.
I don't even think half the art collectors know who Sadowski is. But so I never read those issues back. I mean, early on. I mean, I've read some Silver Age Superman. They were all kind of goofy stories. Right. I mean, was Justice League, was that a more serious story, or was it also okay?
No, because they're written for somebody of the age that I was when I was buying that as a vintage comic. It's not, it's all the characters have the same personalities in the Justice League. The art is to a particular taste. Let's just call it that.
Right.
But that cover is just magical to me. Even not that I love the issue. The cover is just like right here, hits me right here when I see it.
Oh, that's awesome.
The annual Justice Society crossovers, though, were great.
Oh, yeah.
Those were really well done.
Yeah.
That's Gardner Fox, like Silver Age at his best. So if for some reason anybody's looking to start reading Silver Age Justice League for the first time, just focus on the annual JLA, JSA crossovers.
Yeah, all
that's
those
the best of the best
trades, like Crisis on Two Worlds, and they made a whole line of them. Like those are good ones to check out if you want to.
Wow. I mean, I knew Derek and Mike were big DC fans. I didn't know I was outnumbered 3-1 by the DC fans.
Well, because I grew up in the Super Friends era, and there wasn't a Marvel equivalent of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Okay. All right. So I just want to say a couple things about Comic Art Live. I mean, we're going to move on to other topics. I didn't want to make the whole thing about Comic Art Live, but I've been hearing, looking at social media and hearing with other groups, there's been a lot of complaints about the high prices on Comic Art Live. I think we all see prices escalating over the last couple of years. I mean, just in general over Heritage and Comic Connect, Comic Link, and the format in Comic Art Lives allows people to choose their own price. I mean, that is the nice part of Comic Art Live, and the downside is that people can choose their own price. And a lot of these sellers are fine without selling art. But the point of what I'm trying to make is that there's over 6,000 pieces. If you see a piece that you love but you hate the price, you probably just want to move on and look at the other 6,000 pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, this is you probably have one seller with crazy prices, but if you keep searching, you'll find another seller who's probably going to let things go for more affordable prices. Some of these sellers actually want to sell their pieces, and so it is. I mean, you are going to see a lot of high prices, but you can't just be focused on it. If you don't see something that's affordable, just move on. There's nothing to complain. There have been 500 pieces that are sold in Comic Art Live, or maybe slightly under 500 right now. But I mean, without Comic Art Live, you won't have 500 pieces that are switching hands. So the numbers will say that less than 10% of the pieces have sold. But the fact is, there's a lot of art that's available that you wouldn't have without Comic Art Live. So 500 pieces have been exchanged because of Comic Art Life. So don't get too caught up with all the high prices that you see. But those are my last thoughts on Comic Art Live. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk or say anything about Comic Art Live?
I had a good time. I made 3 purchases. They were all under $500. So I 100% endorse what Larry's saying.
Right.
Yeah, there was plenty of great stuff out there. I think no matter what your taste and your price range, you should have been able to hopefully find something. I mean, given the volume of the material, it might have taken a bit of digging, but digging's half the fun. You know, it takes, like, something like this takes me back to, you know, the days of, you know, diving through back issue bins, you know, and stuff like that. You don't get to do that so much with art, at least not to that extent, unless you go to a show. So to have a virtual opportunity to do it, I think is great.
Great.
And you can set the price range in your search function. So if you know that your budget taps out at $500, right? It seems like there's no point to complain. Just don't shop at that store, so to speak.
Yeah. So
if Target is your budget, don't go into Nordstrom, is basically what I'm saying.
Right. All right. So we're going to move on and then talk about other topics. So I'm going to talk about Spider-Boy. So over the last week, Nick Barucci on his show, he sold the entire issue. Well, at least during the show, he sold the entire, except for one page, which was the splash, for $45,000 for Spider-Boy. Now, you know, this isn't a commentary about the pricing really, but Nick did receive an offer for $40,000. So it wasn't, you know, $45,000 wasn't as insane if somebody is actually making an offer close to that. So, but I guess I want to talk to the panels. Is this what a new trend that we're going to that we're probably going to be seeing with new first appearances? I think this isn't the first time there's a first appearance has made like a huge splash in terms of the market. I believe during the Donny Cates era and Hulk, there was a character called Titan that was also the first appearance was sold very high. So, but what are your thoughts? Was there any new character that you saw that you loved, and how would you feel that you read this character, you loved it the first time, and next thing you know, it's the price is right there around $40,000. So, Derek, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna just fully own up and say that I'm completely and utterly biased when it comes to like modern comics and pages and things like that. Like
Right.
Even when I write like top 10 lists of my favorite stories, usually like the number 10 is the most current story, right? Like for me, it's kind of about history, and sometimes for me, it takes some time to get to that place on the list where you feel like comfortable putting something at number 1, because you want to see like, does this survive the test of time? You know, is this, you know, like, I guess, you know, for the characters you're talking about, I probably can guarantee you there's going to be a Spider-Boy Marvel Legend at some point, but there's not yet, right? But to me, I'm like, is there a Titan Marvel Legend? Is there, you know, whatever, you know, is there a sideshow toy? Are they going to be in the Spider-Verse movies? Like, like all that stuff will then show, like, is that going to add to the value of, you know, what somebody loves and spent money on, which is, you know, totally their business. As far as like characters, I mean, come on, man, I have a Maxima gallery. Like, yes, I've seen a character that nobody else loves that I loved at first sight, right? And collect a bunch of art. And, you know, I mean, something I'd love to get a page of is like somebody like Madcap. And I don't even think I, you know, fell in love with the character with his first appearance. But I know you were going to ask about like popularity of the character and does it change things for you? And like for me, like I love the Madcap that's in the Captain America comics. I adore the Madcap that was in Daredevil and Power Pack and Avengers Spotlight and all those things, because he was just kind of a fun, goofy character that had a healing factor, and it was kind of like a Bugs Bunny, you know, type thing, a Warner Brothers type thing. It wasn't like gory or horrific or anything like that. It's just if you chopped off his arm, he picked it up, put it back on, he was fine. Like that's all there was about him. He was a Looney Tunes character brought to life in the Marvel universe. But then you could argue he got more popular. He was in Ghost Rider. He was in Deadpool. And then all of a sudden it was all about like horrific stuff and trying to keep up with the kind of I don't know, maybe not so clean witticisms of the Deadpool universe, and that version of the character. I mean, those pages might be worth more than the pages I cited, but it's just all personal preference. It's all subjective. So to me, it's like, if you love it, buy it. You know what I mean? Like, but if as to whether it's going to be, I don't know, some great investment, well, you got to see, like 20 years from now, if there's 50 billion Spider-Verse movies with tons of Spider Boys, then A-okay. If not, well, oh well, at least you bought what you loved.
Yeah, I think people are gambling and say this is going to be the next Miles. I mean, I think that's a huge bar because Miles is amazing pop. He's probably the best new character that has showed up in the last 10 years. So that's a huge gamble on that. So, Mike, what are your thoughts on this trend on first appearance?
I mean, I honestly can't remember the last time that I read a comic where it was the first appearance of a character and I immediately fell in love with the character. So it's not something that I personally am going to go like, wow, this great new character, I got to get the first appearance. Although who's to say, maybe there'll be a new character this Wednesday that catches my eye. But the reality is this, I mean, Nick priced it the way he did and he found a buyer. So it did sell. So if this is the new trend, I don't know, but if it sells, you can't really argue with the price that's being offered. But to go back to Derek, what Derek said, I mean, my philosophy is buy what you love, and maybe the buyer loves Spider-Boy. I don't know. Maybe it was love at first sight for them and the character, and so great. And if it's as a potential investment, I wish them good luck, and hopefully it pans out. But as to whether or not this is the new trend, I guess that remains to be seen. I mean, it does seem that birth pages, first appearances, there do seem to be more collectors who are focusing on that now than there were a few years ago. So my expectation would be that this does continue, but it's hard to figure out from a first appearance if a character is going to hit it big. And that's a lot of reasons why first appearances are so valuable, because oftentimes it comes out and nobody was looking forward to Amazing Spider-Man 129 because it was going to have the Punisher in it, or Hulk 181 because it had Wolverine in it. It was, here's the new character, it hits, and now that becomes a desirable issue. If you can predict which new character is going to be the next best thing, God bless, and shoot me a message so I can get on board.
Right. I mean, when did that issue get released, though, in terms of first appearance of Spider? Did we know if it was like last week or was it last month?
I think it just got released. I don't even know.
That's what I thought, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Right. So, this is. I mean, this is speculation. Like before anybody turned the page and then even saw the character. So.
I mean, if it makes anyone feel better, I can tell you stories about how I don't know, misinvested or sold at the wrong time with things like way back. I mean, I know I sold like whatever it was, Batman Adventures number 12 for like pennies on the dollar. I sold, New Mutants 98 in a lot that probably was pennies on the dollars. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that, I don't know what, Amanda Waller's first appearance in Legends 2 was all of a sudden going to be speculated on and be sold for a bunch of money just because of the Suicide Squad movie. I sold all those comics long time ago. So, I mean, like Mike's saying, you never know, right? Like you don't have a crystal ball or anything.
Yeah. And you mentioned Herb Trimpe. I spoke to Herb Trimpe and he had no idea that Wolverine was going to be that big. If he knew that, he probably wouldn't have given away the page. Right. He just give it away to a kid like at a con.
And John Byrne tells the story about how Claremont and Cockrum were planning to write Wolverine out of the X-Men right before he took over.
Right.
And he's the one who put his foot down because he wanted a Canadian superhero.
Right.
So who knows if Byrne had never come on that book, who knows what comics history looks like. That might just be a forgotten footnote of a character from the 70s.
Oh, right. I mean, the X-Men would be probably completely different. So, all right. Well, Kevin, what are your thoughts on this whole trend of first appearance?
I was trying to imagine if somebody told me I bought 50 copies of that first Spider-Boy comic book and slabbed them all, and I'm putting them in a vault for like, what would your reaction be? Would you think like, oh, solid investment because it's a new character that could? It's so hard, but I'm a believer in Larry. I'm a believer with comics, with art, with coins, with stamps, with albums. It's worth what somebody will pay for it.
Right.
A price guide can put any number on, but you're just pulling numbers out of the air. What it's worth, realistically, is what someone will pay. So that page is worth what Nick sold it for. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I'll tell you, if you told me that you were going to slab, the first appearance of Spider-Boy, well, are you going to slab every 50 copies of every first appearance that shows up in Spider-Man? I mean, that's, or, any spider related character in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So, it's like, I mean,
how do you choose?
It's putting my chips on every number on the roulette table.
That's right.
I'm going to win something.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
But the last character that I can remember, and of course we're all older, so somebody half our age might have a different answer to this because they're seeing this, fresher without decades and decades of comic reading. I think the last time I remember being like super excited about a new character was the San Diego Comic Con in, I believe, 1993, and there was a table of artists who all worked on Batman the Animated Series doing free sketches for anybody in line. It was Tim, it was Kevin Altieri, it was Dan Reba. There's like two others. And I got up there and I said, could you draw that jester who hangs out with the Joker? What's her name again? And the guy starts to draw and he's like, oh, did we design that costume with the black on this side and the red here? And asking, and the whole table is like debating because nobody could remember what it looked like. That's how new that character was.
Right.
And now, I'm jaded. The character is so overexposed, I don't even care anymore. But back then, it felt like magic. Yeah.
So I'll add another twist to the question. So I'm going to bring up one character, Batman Who Laughs. When he came on, when he showed up, he was a huge character. Now I hardly ever hear about him. Is $40,000 a good investment if it becomes like Batman Who Laughs?
Sorry, I hopefully I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but famously, I went to HeroesCon in 2019. There was a giant piece that auctioned off of the Batman Who Laughs for $3,000, and we all laughed our asses off on the drive home. I mean, sorry, like that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe again, that's my bias, right? I totally own up to. I'm not keen on modern stuff. And I don't have any nostalgia for it. I don't have any passion or love for it. So I completely own up to, I'm totally biased to that. But you know how, bootlegging will tell me that Cyclops is the worst or whatever. Like, dude, Batman Who Laughs is the worst for me. So that's how it is. Like, I think that's just utterly ridiculous. Like derivative, like who gets paid for that even? Like it doesn't even make any sense. You just took two characters and smushed them together, and then unless your name's Jeff Johns, you don't get paid for it, right? I think that's how it works. I don't know, but anyway, sorry.
Well, in fairness, that's Scott Snyder.
Well, it's Capullo designed, I believe. So
yeah.
I think it's a cool design, but I mean, I didn't like the stories, and I'm glad they kind of disappeared. But I know he's going to come back because he looks too cool to just keep under the radar. But
it's very much to me like Judge Death, just in Batman.
Yeah.
Which Judge Death is cool,
right? So, okay. Oh, Mike, any thoughts?
I sort of checked out of Batman around that time. So
okay.
No opinion on the Batman Who Laughs. Ultimately, what it comes down to is hopefully whoever's spending large amounts on first appearances that are speculative, presumably they can afford it. So hopefully nobody's taking a second mortgage on the house or anything like that in order to do it. And honestly, I hope it pans out for anybody who's doing it as a potential investment. And if it doesn't work out, well, hopefully it's not going to be too big a hit for them overall.
Okay. Oh, I guess I do have one more question for the panel. So, Derek, you mentioned you had this love for a specific character. Do you like it if it's more popular or less popular? I mean, in terms of demand for the art, does that?
I mean, I guess you have to look at it.
Yeah.
You have to be less emotional about it, right?
Right.
Like I think it's to your advantage, right? If everybody's going, oh, PU, I hate DC, I'm kind of like, oh yes, because that means like it's not going to cost as much, right? Like keep saying PU, man, because it helps me out, right? Like, but if you're looking at it from some kind of prestige kind of perspective, right? And you say, hey man, I got X-Men art, man. And X-Men is the top of the food chain. I mean, especially as far as original art goes, right? Then you know it's kind of like a coffer in your cap, right? So I mean, again, subjective, man. It's all subjective.
Well, what is your perspective? I mean, what do you favor? Do you favor that your favorite characters stay under the radar?
I mean, I think it's to my advantage. I mean, you know, I mean, as far as like when you say under the radar, I mean, it's not like I want characters that are popular or in the public consciousness to be, you know, people to be dismissive of it. Like I'd want people to give, you know, I don't know, Batman or Superman the same respect as the X-Men or whatever, right? Like just because one's Marvel and one's DC, I don't think it really should make a difference, right? But in terms of like, you know, what you're going after, I mean, I'd have to be honest. Like I'd love it if, you know, I could score quote unquote deals on whatever it is, right? Like so to me, I totally, you know, from a purely motivated out of self-interest, right? Like yes, that would be great if all the stuff I loved was totally within that budget that I set on the search, right? And all my favorite stuff came up within that budget, or even lower than that, then that'd be a real score, right? But then, like you said, you know, you mentioned the Dino page that sold, right? It's like he sold a Crisis page, I have a Crisis page. I guess that's a coffer in my cap now, right? Like I guess that's a good thing, right? Like so, I mean, obviously that's, you know, and it's not under the radar, so there is a certain sense of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, euphoria or whatever, the endorphins you get from Facebook or the calf hearts or the posts and everything. When someone loves something that you own that's beyond you, it's a different feeling than, and I totally adhere to the whole Mandel, like buy what you love and buy things that you love that nobody else love. I adhere to that, but it is a different feeling when you buy like the one character or the one artist or the one thing that you personally love, and that can have a lot of meaning to you, you know, in your heart and internally or whatever, that the childhood stuff, the nostalgia, all that kind of stuff, that the reasons why we buy this stuff, the personal reasons, right? But then there is something to be said where somebody says, oh man, you got a Jim Lee X-Men page, you got a Watchmen page, like holy crap, like, you know what I mean? And that's beyond you. You know what I mean? Like that's something that like is universal. And when you have that, like that's that's a unique, at least for me, at least in this hobby. Like I don't have the funds to do that all the time, but that's a unique experience.
Yeah, Mike, what about you? What are your preference if you had a favorite character, and how do you feel about it being more popular?
I'm fine if it's a character I really like. I'm fine with it being less popular if it means there's less competition for the artwork. Just to give a recent example connected to something I just posted to my calf gallery this week, I love Ambush Bug, Keith Giffen's Ambush Bug. I'm usually a one and done guy in my art collection. Like, oh, I got this example, I'm good. I move on to something else. I love Ambush Bug. I'd be happy to have as many Ambush Bug pieces as I can get. And I've been lucky over the last few years. I've been able to pick up about a half dozen of them. And they don't come up that often. And but when they have come up, I've been like, ooh. Like there was one that I picked up, a splash at a heritage auction a few months back. And I really had no idea where it was going to end up. And it ended up way below where I thought it might be. And I was like, oh, all right, I guess I like Ambush Bug better than anyone else who's monitoring this auction, really. And that was fine with me. I was perfectly happy with that.
Cool. Kevin, what about you?
Well, you're speaking to somebody who owns a commission of Brother Power the Geek. I believe the search results on CAF do not even fill one page.
I think you might get 5 results.
If you look for that character. And you're also speaking to somebody whose favorite Marvel character is Captain Marvel, not Carol Danvers, the prior one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a small club. We hold our annual meetings in a closet because there's not a lot of demand. I'm trying to imagine if my favorite character was Captain America.
Right.
The fun part would be, oh my God, look at all this art I can browse through. This is amazing. This is so cool. But it would also be, look at all this art I can't afford. Wow, this is so frustrating. So I've never collected super popular characters. And so I've never had that experience. I'd only just thinking of it like intellectually to answer your question because I've never experienced it.
Oh, I think you're in an envious situation, actually. Like, but isn't Starlin Captain Marvel page? Aren't those up there, or is it just the ones with Thanos?
No, the Starlin ones are completely out of my price range, but because I know they are, I never even have to browse them.
Okay.
And so the
I thought you were talking about Monica Rambeau.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Captain Marvel before Carol.
You're right. I skipped the 80s. Sorry, Michael. Sorry. one back further. Yeah, so Larry, I could just skip all the Starlin pages. Anybody who sells them, I can just look at it like I'm in a comic art museum because it's just completely out of my price range. But then the less fun part of it is there's so much less to look at or buy. You know, the inventory is so limited once you eliminate those that, I mean, my wallet is happy, but it's less fun as a collecting hobby, if that makes sense. So that's why I have a lot of commissions to fill. I don't even want to say fill the gap. Sounds like we're drug addicts and I can't get my drug of choice. So I'll take whatever the guy's slinging on the corner over here. It's more like the commissions were more something that I can realistically stock up on, whereas pages are few and far between in my price range. And so therefore it's less of an issue.
Okay.
It's a true story, Larry, because the biggest surprise of CAF Live this weekend, zero hits for my Maxima search.
I guess that's a downside, but honestly, I wish I can get my favorite books for on the cheap. I mean, yes, I'd like them to be popular enough that they keep publishing them, but I also don't want to compete with thousands of people with deeper pockets than me. So, all right. So we're going to move on to the next topic. It probably might be our last topic. So earlier this week, it was after Lake Como. Sean Murphy posted something on Instagram. Oh, and then it was also posted on other social media about advice for other artists going to conventions, talking about how they should make eye contact, how they should ask basic questions, how you're from, just trying to be friendly and I guess offer some great customer service to the fans who come up to their table. In rare occasions, you'll have someone rude, but you can't make that rude person anger you or get emotional over those rude fans. So what do you I mean, do you think that's necessary for artists to have that advice, or have you ran into any situations where an artist could use that advice? So I guess, Derek, I've been starting with your every question, so we'll just do it with you. Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, honestly, I think for many reasons, Sean Gurdon Murphy is my spirit animal. I think 5 and 6 on his list, 100% are true. They are. And you can go look up that list yourself, but it's all true. And then turning this around into something positive. Look, I'll just share a story because it hits all the points he talked about. This is a age-old story from Big Wow Comic Con. I tried to get to Mark Teixeira's line early. I think maybe he was coming back from lunch or something. I had a poster for him to sign, and I was all excited about it and everything. And a young woman had queued up in front of me before, and I guess when he finally came back, there was some funny conversation between him and Neil Adams. And, Neil was kind of like, hey, man, you got to charge something. $5, something, whatever, right? And so he makes this little, hand-drawn sign, okay, $5 for autographs or whatever. And the young woman in front of me pulls up from her giant suitcase or whatever rolling thing, you know where this is going, about, I don't know, 200 Marvel, cards or whatever. And it's like, oh, I want you to sign all of these. And it's kind of like, okay, well, $5, blah, 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 blah. That'll be a couple $100. And she whips out the couple $100. I'm the second person in line, mind you. And, a half hour later, it all gets done. Right. And, he can kind of tell, like, it's a little frustrating, right? To be the guy that is behind the guy that has a suitcase full of comics, and whether they're getting paid or not. Look, I was like, I'm happy you got paid, dude. Don't worry about it. And he takes the time and he talks with me and makes eye contact. He gives me a free remark, and that remark is in my calf gallery to this day. I'm not going to sell it or part with it or anything. He did a little nice Ghost Rider sketch on the Ghost Rider poster. I later had Howard Mackey sign it because I figure, that all makes sense to me and everything. So it's this prized thing in my possession. And I think as far as what Sean Gurdon Murphy's saying, he followed that whole checklist to a T. And he turned what could be, a potentially, I don't know, negative fan experience into something that's treasured and positive. And it doesn't hurt to reiterate that. I mean, you don't have to take it at face value that everybody knows that stuff, because I'm telling you, 5 and 6, some of these people don't know that stuff. They really don't.
Was number 6 about don't just retweet the photo with the woman? Okay.
I'm telling you, it's all true, man. Like, so I'm just saying, like that it doesn't hurt to reiterate that, because there might be somebody who just never considered it and went, you know what, you're right, I should do that. Or, look, I mean, I don't want to throw the community at large under the bus either, but come on, man, we're all into geeky stuff. Like, there's that aspect of, social awkwardness and all that other stuff. It doesn't hurt to say, hey, you know what? Make eye contact, smile, ask them how their day was and all this other stuff, right? Because if you miss all those small things, if you take all that for granted, then you are going to miss out on what he refers to as goodwill. And my story about Tex is that Tex has immense goodwill with me because of that experience, right? And there's hundreds of guys, Frank Quietly, like all kinds of guys I can tell you stories about that have immense goodwill with me because, and I'm not saying that they needed to hear it. I'm just saying they already follow it. And perhaps people that are young and upcoming, like all of us, we all must make mistakes. We all need to learn things, right? Like, maybe somebody out there, will learn from that and become an even better, businessman and an artist and the whole 9 yards. So I mean, I don't have any problem with it.
Right. Mike, what about you? Is some of that advice necessary for artists?
I mean, I think it read to me really as common sense advice. I didn't think there was anything in there that was controversial. I didn't think there was anything in there that an artist should read and say, wait a second, how dare he say that we act this way or that way. I've been lucky in terms of my personal experiences meeting artists that they've all been positive. I can't really think of anywhere I walked away saying like, wow, what a jerk. And so from my own personal experiences, I can't think of anyone, not that I would name names anyway, where I'm like, oh, they really need to read this and take it to heart. But I'm sure there are artists out there who should read it. And I've heard other stories, not stuff I've experienced firsthand. I'm sure we all have, where those artists should take a page from Sean Gordon Murphy's book, but I can't see how anyone would think those real sort of almost those lessons could be applied to almost any aspect of life. Really, I mean, it's just really just good advice.
Right, Kevin, any thoughts from you?
Oh wow, I would say my bad stories are like weighted like 50-1 towards bad fans more than bad artist behavior. if you're putting a I mean, I was sitting here trying to think, and after reading Sean's thing, I'm trying to think. I haven't had very many bad or witnessed very many bad behavior experiences by artists. It's almost always been the other way around, where And to jump off Derek's story, I'll share this, and I'm not going to, because the person who this happened to may even be in our chat, so I'm going to speak very generally. Something happened that I had never seen before at a convention this year. There was a line of people waiting for an artist, and one customer got there first, in fairness, was at the table first before the artist sat down. A line forms, and this customer paid the artist for a sketch cover and paid for a second and paid for a third. And so we're talking 30, 40, 45 minutes, 50 goes by, and the line has not moved because it's one person up there just getting sketch after sketch after sketch. And then finally, when that's done and the person steps away, the entire line bursts into applause. I've never seen that. Going to cons since the 90s, I have never seen the applause of shame given to a fan before this year. And but who is the quote unquote bad guy in that story? Should the person managing the table say you can have one sketch, you get in line, and you come back through again? Or is it I was here first, and so that person gets all of their business taken care of and then they move on? I don't know, because it's kind of the Wild West. It's kind of how each table is run. And so is that a bad artist story, or is that a bad customer story? Or is that just a, wow, sucks to be you in that line story?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just end it here. So I run into more worse customers than I do artists. I mean, I honestly, I give some of the artists a pass because they are at home. They don't have a lot of social contact with a lot of fans. I mean, they are working on their pages in seclusion, so they don't have a lot of social contact. So, but maybe it helps them to have some of that Sean Murphy advice when they are in public and talking to fans. So some of them probably do need that customer service training. It's probably not inherent in everybody. But all right, so I have to close this panel because Bill Cox has to run the next panel, which is about the deals and on Comic Art Live. So I want to thank all my panelists for joining me, and this was been a fun conversation. I hope the audience really liked it, and maybe we'll do something in the near future. So thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your Comic Art Live.
Thanks, everyone.